There's a version of you, still alive inside, that stopped waiting for permission a long time ago. And somewhere between the deadlines, the small talk, and the life you convinced yourself was enough, you buried it. This video is about digging it back up. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're just running a life that was designed for someone else. You wake up, you perform, you say the right things, smile at the right moments, then come home and feel nothing. Not sadness, something quieter and more dangerous than sadness. Numbness. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, soldier, philosopher, spent his nights writing to himself, not for publication, not for praise, just notes, confessions, reminders. In those private pages, he described the same creeping disconnection you're feeling right now, the sense that time was flowing past him while he stood still. If the most powerful man in the ancient world struggled to feel present in his own life, what does that say about the nature of this wound? It says this: the wound is not in your circumstances, it's in the three places where every human being breaks: the mind, the body, and the heart. And each one requires a completely different kind of repair. What you're about to hear isn't motivational content, it's a reconstruction plan. And if you stay with it until the end, you will understand yourself in a way you haven't in years. Let's begin. The wound you can't see. Here is the uncomfortable truth most people will scroll past. You are not thinking your own thoughts. Right now, the opinions you hold, the fears you carry, the voice that tells you you're too old or you missed your chance. Almost none of that originated in you. It was installed by media, by comparison, by 1,000 small moments of criticism that got louder over the years until they sounded like your voice. Marcus Aurelius called this the borrowed mind. He wrote that most people go through their whole lives reacting to external events and calling that living. It isn't living. It's being controlled in slow motion. The Stoics had a concept called prosoche, watchful attention to one's own inner state, not obsession with it, not performance of it, just honest observation. What am I actually thinking right now, and is it true? Here's the first practice. For 7 days, just 7, when you wake up, before you reach for your phone, write down 3 thoughts that crossed your mind in the first 60 seconds of consciousness. Just observe them. Don't judge them. Then ask, did I choose this thought, or did it arrive uninvited? You'll be surprised how rarely the answer is the former. The second practice comes from Epictetus, a man born into slavery, crippled by his owner, and yet considered one of the most mentally free human beings in recorded history. He taught that suffering doesn't come from events. It comes from the story we attach to events. He called this the ruling faculty, your capacity to decide what things mean, and you have let that faculty go dormant. So here's the challenge. Take the belief that limits you most, the one you don't say out loud because you're half ashamed of it. I'll never change. I'm too far gone. The window closed. Write it down. Now write the evidence against it, not the hopeful kind, the factual kind, because fear survives on vagueness. The moment you interrogate it with specifics, it begins to crumble. The mind is not your enemy, but it is, right now, an unmanned weapon. It's time to pick it up. The body holds what the mind denies, and what you're about to hear about the physical self might be the hardest part. not because it's complicated, but because you already know it. Seneca wrote something that should be read in every doctor's waiting room. No one is more miserable than the man who lives in his own mind, but has abandoned his body. He wasn't talking about appearance. He was talking about vitality, the raw biological energy that makes everything else possible. Here is what neuroscience and Stoic philosophy agree on. The body is not the servant of the mind. They are in constant conversation. What you do physically becomes what you think emotionally. There is no clean separation. So, let's be specific. Sleep. If you are sleeping less than 7 hours, you are not managing a busy life. You are borrowing against a debt you can't repay. Cognitive function, emotional regulation, willpower, all of it degrades under sleep deprivation in ways that feel like personality, but are actually biology. Protect your sleep with the same seriousness you protect your most important appointments. Movement. You don't need a gym. You need friction. Small, daily, physical resistance that tells your nervous system, I am still in command of this vessel. 20 minutes of walking changes cortisol. 30 minutes of elevated heart rate changes mood more reliably than most pharmaceuticals studied to date. The Stoics called voluntary physical hardship maledi, practice. Not punishment, not performance, practice. What you consume. Seneca also wrote about the relationship between what enters your body and what exits your mind. This isn't about dieting. It's about the fact that you cannot think clearly inside a body you are actively poisoning with processed food, excessive alcohol, and chronic underhydration. You already know this. The question is why you keep choosing otherwise. And the answer, if you're honest, is usually one word: comfort. The Stoics had a term for the trap of comfort: hedon, the soft, sweet prison of choosing ease so consistently that you forget hardship is where capability lives, where confidence is rebuilt, where the voice that says, I can handle this, gets louder. The mind can be retrained. The body can be reclaimed. But there is a wound that neither logic nor movement can touch on its own. And that wound is the one most people are too afraid to name. At some point, you decided that caring too much was the problem. Maybe it was a betrayal, a loss, a moment when you gave everything you had to something, a person, a dream, a version of yourself, and it didn't survive. And you looked at the wreckage and quietly made a decision: never that exposed again. You told yourself you were becoming wiser, more resilient, harder to hurt, but what you actually became was careful and carefully numb. The Stoics are often misread as emotionless, as if Marcus Aurelius moved through life without feeling anything. But read the Meditations carefully, and you find something different. A man in profound grief over the deaths of his children, writing to himself to stay open anyway, not to suppress the feeling, to hold it without being consumed by it. That is the actual Stoic instruction on the heart. Not feel less, but carry more without breaking. Here is what that requires in practice: forgiveness, not as a gift to whoever hurt you. They may not deserve it, as a surgical act of self-liberation. Epictetus lost his physical freedom and still managed to live freer than most of his masters. Why? Because he refused to let his inner life be governed by what others had done to him. Resentment is an argument with the past. The past cannot hear you, and the longer you make that argument, the more of your present you sacrifice to it. Tonight, write down one thing you've been carrying, one person, possibly yourself, you haven't fully forgiven. Not to excuse what happened, to release yourself from being defined by it. Purpose. A heart without direction will fill itself with noise, and we live in a world that has never had more noise to offer. The question the Stoics kept returning to was not, what do I want, but what am I for? Marcus believed every person had a logos, a deep, rational function connected to something larger than the self. For him, it was Rome. For Epictetus, it was teaching freedom. For Seneca, it was articulating truth. What is yours? Not the resume answer, the real one. The one you feel in your chest in certain moments when you help someone find an answer. When you build something with your hands. When you create something from nothing. When you protect someone who needed protecting. Those moments are data. They are your heart telling you this direction, not that one. You don't need to redesign your entire life tomorrow, but you do need to stop outsourcing meaning to things that cannot provide it. Here is what the Stoics understood that took philosophers centuries to rediscover. These three things, mind, body, heart, are not separate territories. They are one system. When the mind is chaotic, the body deteriorates. When the body is neglected, the heart loses its courage. When the heart is closed, the mind invents stories to justify it. Each wound creates the conditions for the other two, which means you don't have to fix everything at once. You just have to start somewhere. Marcus Aurelius woke up some mornings wanting to stay in bed. He wrote about it. He described the pull of comfort, the resistance to rising, the temptation to let the day happen to him rather than act within it. And then he rose. Not because he was extraordinary, because he understood that identity is built in the small, unsexy, repeated moments when no one is watching. Seneca doubted himself. Epictetus had every external reason to despair. Neither chose the easy interpretation of their circumstances. You are not being asked to be perfect. You are being asked to be honest with yourself about which of these three wounds has gone untreated the longest, and to take one real concrete step in that direction today. Not tomorrow, not when the timing improves, not after the next chapter. Today, because the version of you that is still alive in there, the one with fire, with direction, with genuine presence, is not waiting for perfect conditions. It's waiting for you to decide it's worth the work. There is no dramatic ending to this kind of journey. There is only the quiet, accumulating weight of choosing yourself, one morning, one decision, one honest moment at a time, until one day you look in the mirror and the eyes looking back are familiar. That recognition, that there you are moment, cannot be bought, performed, or rushed. It is built, and it begins now. If something in this video cracked something open in you, don't let that feeling dissolve into the next notification. Write one sentence in the comments, a promise to yourself, something real, the kind you actually intend to keep. And if you want to keep walking this path, the Stoic one, the honest one, the one most people give up on because it asks something real of them, subscribe. This channel exists for the people who are tired of surface answers. You've already proven you're one of them.